New tonight, the race to regulate artificial intelligence in Connecticut. Lawmakers are debating a bill that would change how people interact with AI chatbots, and the deadline to pass it just days away. Your reporter Katie Cohen is live at the state capitol to explain how the plan would add some layers of protection. Katie.
Stephanie, from the classroom to the workplace, Connecticut lawmakers say artificial intelligence is everywhere, and tonight they're taking steps to protect your family.
Angel Cologne would do anything to protect his daughter. That's why they have conversations about what she sees and does online, especially involving chat rooms and AI.
Just tell her to be wise and keep boundaries and just not to look at everything that may look good.
He supports Senate Bill 5, which requires AI chatbot operators to make efforts to detect suicidal ideation and connect users with resources. Lawmakers on the General Law Committee say it's important since 70% of teenagers use AI companions. Tamila Triantoro is an expert in AI-human collaboration. She says talking to chatbots can change our communication patterns.
AI companions are available around the clock. They don't push back like a friend or a parent would, and they tend to tell people what they want to hear. So for a young person who is still developing, that creates entirely different learning environment.
AI companions made headlines in August 2025 when a Greenwich man killed his mother and himself after talking with AI chatbots about it. Now his mother's family has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against OpenAI and Microsoft. This bill doesn't stop with mental health concerns. It would also make employers tell workers when AI is being used in the hiring process. And it pushes for education in nonprofits and small businesses to help with the integration of AI.
What is happening is that it is changing parts within each job. So a lawyer is still a lawyer, but some parts of work are different. And a teacher is still a teacher, but maybe lesson planning is somewhat different.
Parents say AI is intimidating, but they believe education is the answer.
It all starts at home with me, just teaching her, and being aware of not everything that looks good on the internet is good.
We have reached out to OpenAI and Microsoft about Senate Bill 5 and are still waiting to hear back. This bill did pass the Senate. Now it moves on to the House, where lawmakers have until May 6th to vote. Your reporter live in Hartford, Katie Cohen, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.